Hey guys. Okay, so we've already been talking for a second, but the great Michael Pressman is on our podcast. Thank you so much.
My
My
pleasure.
yeah, man. So my great friend Leland and Geraldnik and his dad Rob put us together, but Michael is a great director and producer of everything over the years. He's literally what we look to on this podcast as a model of in order to have an inspiring career in the arts and the creative industry, you have to do everything. And I saw that you started kind of in comedy and then in already you said you didn't want to get and sorry, I'll just riddle through this a little bit and then
You
your
can.
thoughts and trepidations after you started in comedy, which we want to get into the beginning, but it's hard to even get these jobs that you got. You were directing what the sequel to the Bad News Bears with Walter Matthau, which how the heck do you get that? The first one's so
Well,
coveted.
actually, Walter Matthau was not in the sequel.
That
Um,
happens sometimes, but nonetheless.
yeah, and I can get to all that. You
Totally.
know, um,
Anyway, yeah,
the one thing I'll jump in with
please.
say, and
Yeah.
and I got two things to mention. One is I remember something that was said to me when I was 20 years old. My father was in the theater, and I'm New York based, and I grew up in New York and Manhattan, and I recently married um, the the girl from the second floor of the apartment building that we grew up in. She grew up on the second floor. I was on the fifth floor of 333. However, we've known each other all our lives from the
Recently?
recently, from the
Recently?
age like 5 years ago, we got married.
Okay, well that's exciting then. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was an actress. Her name's Maya Danziger, and we'd known each other all our lives, and we would always stay in touch. And then one day, make a long story short, we had lunch, and I thought she was living with this guy, and she thought I was still married. And it's like, finally, we're both single, and there it
That's like a
was.
movie right
Goes
there.
It's a movie. I gotta write it. Yeah,
movie magic.
we gotta
Yeah.
find the conflict in the movie, though.
Right.
That's the problem. I've given you the ending.
It's a Woody Allen movie minus the whole strange,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Woody Allen aspect, but
Right. Absolutely. So the point was, grew up in the arts scene. My father was an acting teacher and a director in the theater in New York. And he was heavily blacklisted, and that's a whole other subject during the McCarthy period.
Right.
I directed a play about that 5 years ago, and called Finks, that was at Rogue Machine Theater. But the point was, he was very close to another director named Martin Ritt, a big famous director who directed Norma Ray and Sounder, and I got to meet him at the age of 20.
okay.
And he said the most clear comment to me, which is, I don't know how you get started in this business. And I'm going, gee, this is wisdom. I mean, he said, I don't understand today. He said, in my day, you get a Broadway play, you direct a Broadway play, they hire you in Hollywood, and you make movies. I don't know how you get started today.
Right.
You make your own path. And I've never forgotten that meeting. It was like shell shock. If I could pass that on to everybody here going, I don't have any idea how you get started today. Now, that's not completely true. I have lots of ideas, but the pathway is your own.
Mm-hmm.
There is no pathway. It's your own. Whether you're going to put together, a short film, or you're going to make a little indie feature for 50,000 and raise money, or whether you're going to work as a PA on a TV series for 4 or 5 years and work your way up in the writer's room and get to be a writer and then a director, or an editor and then a director,
Right.
or whatever, So everyone's pathway is different. And not only do you have to embrace that, you have to know there's no rules. And you have to know that you're making up your own rules. Now, so what happened to me? How did I start at the age of 25? And here I am, 30. And that's just
And it
5
looks
years.
like, by the way, already by that point, you had all based on your Wikipedia or whatnot and your website, you had all these degrees in great
Okay, well,
prowess.
I was a child actor. I acted a little in the theater. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon in theater and studied acting and directing. And then
By the way, Carnegie Mellon, not to interrupt, at least now it's one of the most competitive programs you can be in. Was
Probably
it the
was back
same
then.
at the time?
yeah, it was pretty competitive back then too. It really was.
But still, yeah. Still at the
I'm
end of
going
the
to
day,
guess
that doesn't take
it's
care of
gotten
you.
more competitive, you know.
Yeah.
But my classmates were the people who went on to do Godspell, you know, left school and did. But I left school and came out to California and went to the first year of Cal Arts,
Such
which
another big program. Yeah.
was a great program. We had a brilliant teacher who was a famous film director named Alexander McKendrick, and I still save this, which was made by somebody, which is called I don't know if you can read it. It's
Yeah.
Slogans for the Screenwriter's Wall by Alexander McKendrick, all about tips to screenwriting, and I keep it with me.
Little reminders and things. And
Yeah.
it's great.
Anyway, a friend of mine from school back in New York named Jonathan Kaplan, another terrific director, who had his teacher was Marty Scorsese, who's recommended him to Roger Corman, and he got to do one of these nurses and student teacher movies. And Jonathan said, I can get you an introduction to Roger Corman. And he did.
Wow.
And
good friend.
Yeah, great friend. And then I got an opportunity to direct a film that got canceled. And that was devastating. I went for a year of like writing a script and working at a store and whatever. And then got together with another friend and we wrote a script and sent it to Roger Corman. And he said he'd distribute it. So we raised $200,000 with, that took about a year to raise those 200,000 through friends and other people who read the script and liked it. And I worked with a whole slew of, classmates. I had David Irving as the producer, who went on to be the head of NYU Film School. And Sean Daniel was a second AD. He became president of Universal. And, it went on and on and on. David Kirkpatrick wrote the screenplay. He became the president of Paramount for a while. So everyone started somewhere. However, this movie, got great reviews. We had screenings. It became a kind of cult hit.
Mm-hmm. And was this the I saw this wasn't the Latino gangster one, was it?
No, that's later. This is called The Great Texas Dynamite Chase, two women bank robbers. And it was sort of like people always thought that
Thelma and Louise
stole it.
Yeah.
But I think it's just coincidental. And then
now, $200,000 is not an easy feat, especially I'm sure at the time, at that age, it's like your first thing that you're trying to get off the ground. You mentioned that, part of it was friends, but also people who liked the script. How did you even go about that at the time?
It's hard to remember. It was such a crazy period. We joined with two other producers who were trying to put together an independent film that fell apart, and they had 100. So that helped, going to people and saying, we've got 100. And then there were two things that happened. We had a guarantee from Roger Corman that in addition to it getting distributed, that it was a 2/3 negative pickup or 1/3 negative pickup. He would pay, the minute the film was finished, he'd pay $75,000. So that investment, if you put in 10, you'd already get back 2,500 or something a little more. So it had all these incentives. And then the big one, which lived for about 2 years, was a crazy, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, a crazy tax incentive thing, which was called, if you invest 10, you can write off 40. It's called a 4-in-1 tax investment. Doesn't exist today.
I wonder why.
Yeah, me too. So people, it was like if they were wealthy and they said, okay, here's 10,000, but we're going to write off 40, that worked. Nobody saw any money, by the way. The film didn't make a dime for the investors. Roger Corman sold it worldwide and put it on TV and hotels, and more people saw this film all over the world. I met some guy who said, hey, I bought your movie for France. And I went, oh, it's in France? He says, yeah, we paid 200,000. I said, that's the budget of the whole movie. I didn't see a dime. I mean, I made $5,000. It didn't matter.
Distribution rights.
I'm going to jump to something else too, but
Yeah.
I'm going to get to the question, which is Don Simpson was an executive at Paramount Pictures who later became a partner with Jerry Bruckheimer, and they become Bruckheimer Simpson and made all those movies. Calls me out of the blue. He knew my agent. I had gotten an agent who, one of his first clients, a guy named Jim Burkus, who ended up being the head of UTA or developed it, started it. And he says, pick up the phone. He said, I don't know if you know me. I'm Don Simpson at Paramount. I went, no, hi. And he goes, I just saw your movie. I just watched your movie. And I went, wow, cool. And he goes, yeah, I really liked it. He said, we're looking for a director for the sequel to The Bad News Bears.
No way. Yeah.
Would you come in and talk about it? Now, I had seen the first one and I thought it was so great. I remember going, how do you make a sequel?
Yeah.
And also to find out that they had no script. And the whole thing was just crazy. And make a long story short, they put me together with a fledgling writer who turned out to be Paul Brickman, who's a brilliant writer, screenwriter, director. He was writing the script. I was going to direct it. We wrote it while we prepped it. And we started in December and the movie came out in July. So it was insane. And the payoff was, it was a big hit. And at the time, sequels were not popular. So this was very early on, where doing a sequel was kind of like below making a movie, you know. So it was a little bit of a, really, do I want to do this? And I remember my agent saying, are you crazy? Of course you want to do it. I said, but there's no script. He said, doesn't matter. Just, you know, do it. And it was a blessed experience. If I remember correctly, I don't think I slept for 6 months and worked 7 days a week and whatever. And
late 70s, early 80s, or when?
76.
Okay.
26.
Do you remember how long the actual shoot was?
Yeah, it was long because we could only shoot 8 hours a day because of the kids.
Oh, yeah.
So we started in March. I started work on the script in December and we prepped. We started like the beginning of March and we went almost to end of April. It was like 2.5 months shooting.
There you go. All right. So you start with that. You got a big opportunity to do this comedy that comes from, even though it's the B side, the sequel, it's still this coveted piece, The Bad News Bears. Everyone knows it. And now you got that opportunity because of your calling card, which was your first film that you got to direct, the Texas movie, which, by the way, I'm going to check out all these movies. There's so many good actors.
Yeah.
So I'd love to. And plus my family comes from Hollywood and stuff too, of course. So
I not only do I was checking that out. I mean, I directed Anna in that SVU, who's your cousin, right?
Yep, close cousin.
Yeah, she was great.
Jacob, did you know that? So Michael directed, I spoke with him on the phone yesterday. He goes, he directs Law and Order lately and Chicago Med, or you exec produced Chicago Med, I think, right?
Yeah, and directed it. Yeah.
Both and directed it. So both procedural shows that I'm a fan of too. But
and I'm friendly and directed Talia Balsam, which is also yeah, you got to
well, that's because you guys are all like cool New York people together.
Right.
Yeah. Doing cool New York things. So anyway, that was a big moment for my cousin Anna. He's like 26. She had this like intense, emotional character arc in one episode. And what a coincidence that Michael was the director of it. Yeah.
I love that.
I know. So yeah, there we are. Yeah.
All right. And so you do the comedy, and then did you make a conscious effort to kind of break out of comedy?
Yes and no. You know what? I'm going to jump to something though, because this is important. You're going to love this.
Please.
I'm going to jump to now for a minute because I just finished directing this crazy comedy musical.
Yes.
At Rogue Machine at the Matrix Theater in Hollywood. And I spoke to them today and I said, listen, I'm doing this podcast and And I said, can we do something like if people listen to the podcast, they get discount tickets? So anybody who wants to see the show, you're going to love this. You just go on the site, which is roguemachine.org,
We can attach
and you look up the code and you type in Duke, means you've seen or heard the podcast, and you can get 50% off on the ticket. So it'll be like $25.
Well, me and my friends will get about 30 of them. So yeah.
Great. And all you just type in Duke when it goes to the code or the pass link. You'll figure it out.
I'll write that down.
We'll put all this stuff in the description too.
Thank you for doing that, Michael.
Thank you.
I figured, listen, we want to get this crowd to see this musical, and it's usually an older crowd, but I'm telling you, people who are seeing it like in your age and even, younger and older in that 30s and 40s, they're loving it. So we want to.
Well, I would assume, and Leland's told me about it, and we're going to see it. But so the musical is literally, it's comedy, but also aliens come in, and so it's kind of horror. And it's this girl that's like,
she's from the 1950s, and she's just a total weird girl who like loves outer space. And her parents are worried about her, and she's interested in science. And to make the long story short, she gets abducted and falls in love with an alien, and they send her back. And now there's this romance, but it's star-crossed lovers. How they're going to get back together? It's
Little Shop of Horrors meets Romeo and Juliet.
You bet. Meets Book of Mormon.
Yes, and Book of Mormon in there too. Yeah, no, that seems like something that like people my age would love and stuff. And I know a lot of theater people too. So
do you prefer directing for the theater or film or television, or is it kind of all the above?
All of the above, really. I like it all. What I really like is the variety. That after doing a lot of television, I begin to go, I get itchy. I want to direct a play, or I want to, I've never done a full musical. I've done musical sequences. I've done a film about summer stock theater. I did musicals in college, but this was a first, which is an original, not a revival, and coming up with a concept and sort of starting from scratch. And it was great fun. It was tough work. I mean, I worked my butt off, but it was worth it. And it's there on the stage. Love doing movies because of the attention to detail. And I also love the episodes because, as I've said to every director friend of mine, it's kind of like going to the gym. You work out, you stay young, you stay fresh, you deal with problems on the spot. You've got to be spontaneous. You've got to have a shorthand. You've got to, be able to think on your feet. And
is that ever intimidating when you're going on a television set where, there's a whole established cast and producers and everything? If you're just going on for a one-off or 3 episodes or something, is that ever intimidating to you?
Sure. It's intimidating. It's less so the more you have experience, but you deal with that intimidation. But, I like to have analogies. Do you think it's intimidating as a baseball player in the World Series to get up at bat and there's 50,000 people screaming your name and you've got to focus on hitting the ball? That's a little more intimidating getting on a set.
Yeah.
Or getting into a boxing match in a ring with, oh my God, I don't want to do that.
It's all about perspective.
We always joke around. People are like, "Oh, we even are guilty of saying writing can be the most difficult thing in the world when you have writer's block and just started." But then we're like, it's probably not the most difficult thing in the world.
Well, it's everyone. Every form is different, and everyone has its own obstacles. But what I've always loved about writing, and I've always said this to people, which is at least if I'm stuck, I can walk away from it. As a director, you can't. I have been stuck and had to work through being stuck in the moment. That's a challenge.
On set or more in editing?
Yeah, on set. It's like, you want the ultimate, I have the biggest stuck story for you. You want to hear it?
Love to hear.
I'm directing Richard Pryor in Some Kind of Hero. We jump ahead. I got to do the Boulevard Nights film about the East Los Angeles Chicano gangs, which was totally different than whatever I'd done before. And that became part of the nature of my career, which a lot of people have kind of not been able to pigeonhole, until finally one person wrote a piece about me and said, that is his career. You can't pigeonhole him. He always does different things.
Good stuff is good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what. Yeah.
Right. So the Richard Pryor film was a drama with humor in it. And it was a left field situation. It was, again, Paramount. I had a deal with them. They had the script. They had a deal with Richard Pryor. They put us together. And at first, I didn't think it would even work out. And then it turned out that we really connected, and we had a good experience. So we're shooting this scene, and it's on stage, and it's a hotel room, and he's just come out of 5 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And he's picked up by his wife, whom he hasn't seen in 5 years. And they go for the night out to the hotel. And we rehearsed this scene. It was like a 3 or 4 page scene. We had 2 days to shoot it. And, it moves from the anteroom to the bedroom to the bathroom. It's like a lot of movement, and it's got to be lit, the whole hotel room. And I rehearsed the whole thing. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, does this scene not work? It's like, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know how to fix it. We've just rehearsed it, but it's supposed to be kind of a comic, dramatic scene. Yeah. So they light it for several hours, and then the actress coming in to play Richard Pryor's wife has totally changed her hairstyle. And I said, what's this? And she said, well, it's this big night. And I said, but this big night, you're going to give him a lot of bad news, and you haven't seen him in 5 years, and you picked him up at the airport, and we showed that scene. We showed you pulling up to the hotel, and now we go inside, and you spent an hour redoing your hair. And I'm looking like that. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. You're going to have to go back and change it the way it was. And the hairdresser says, that's going to take another hour. And I go, well, I think you got to do it. I don't know what to do. So I go and I knock on Richard Pryor's door, and I say, you're not going to believe this. I said, I know you've been waiting like 3 hours to start shooting. And the actress, Lynn, changed her hairstyle, and it doesn't make any sense. So she has to go back. And he proceeds to break up into hysterical laughter. He goes, Lana Turner. She thinks she's Lana Turner. He said, that's the funniest thing I ever heard. I said, well, yeah, I suppose it's funny. And I don't know. We're like, okay. Now we come on the set, and they're cordial and everything's fine. And then she proceeds to tell him that she's fallen in love with somebody else. And then the business went bankrupt, and one thing after the other. And he proceeds to laugh.
Yeah.
Which is not in the script.
Yep.
Now he proceeds to laugh, and he starts to cry and laugh. And she is in shock, the actress.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't rehearsed.
Right.
I'm watching this. I can't even watch. It's so hysterically funny, because what he's playing is the circumstances of the hairstyle.
Yeah.
That cracked him up. And now he's using it for the scene. And all of a sudden the scene's magic. I mean, it's like the funniest. And then he's crying. And then she says, do you want a divorce? Breaks up laughing again, crying, divorce. He said, why don't you start a little, he can't control himself. And her look is, this was my scene. I just lost my scene. Scene from me. It was totally logical.
It made sense worked. In the script.
Totally.
My gosh.
It was like incredible. He was spontaneous to the moment. I don't know how to describe how it happened. All I know is sometimes, and I've had this happen numerous occasions, if you kind of are open, the good luck gods can shine down on you. And that was one of them. I didn't stop him. I didn't go, what are you doing? It was like, this is genius. I'm just like, step back, get out of his way.
The great Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
No, I'm inspired. That does, when you least expect it, you don't plan for that, but if you have a little time, maybe something can happen that's
Right.
true to just the set.
You mentioned that there's a very specific attention to detail when you're doing films. I'm curious, obviously there's a balancing act between being really detailed, having all this prep, but also, like you're saying, being really open to everything. Um, as far as detail goes, and coming up with shots and shot lists, what is usually your process? Are you usually down to the T of like you kind of know in your mind at least every single frame how every single thing is going to go, or do you have kind of these are the showpiece moments?
It's a great question. I initially began in the early films with a pretty detailed shot list for myself of knowing how a scene begins and how it ends and how I want to stage it. So I start with that roadmap. And then when I did Boulevard Nights, and John Bailey was the cameraman, brilliant cameraman, and we worked well together, we walked through the whole movie together before we shot it. Okay. And this was very early in my career. And I literally found the script because I've just redone the office here in Brooklyn, and everything's been in storage. And I found the original script, and I was saying, oh my God, so many notes. I don't do any of this anymore, but it was like so. And then we're shooting a scene, and it must have been the first week. And the production manager comes to us and says, we're being thrown out of the cemetery. We have a scene at the cemetery. And there's another scene up above at the parking lot. And it's a very important one-page scene. And he says, you guys got about an hour. And then they're kicking us out. And I said to John, I said, what do we do? I mean, my God, he said, okay, I'll lay 60 feet of track. Take me about 20 minutes, half hour. You stage to the track because we don't go into the cars. So I said, great. So it's just like, we'll do a oneer, we'll just, okay. So all I can tell you is I staged it. We shot it. We got it done in an hour. Next day, we go to the dailies, which at that time you're screening them on a big screen. And we're 2 weeks into the film. And I look at it and I go, this is a great shot. Why is this like so tense and you don't know what's happening next, and they move here and they move there and the cars pull out and it's all happening in this one shot. I never would have dreamt it up. And it gave me the idea. Plus, I will also say, working with Richard Pryor with spontaneity and being open for surprise, I now come with a much different kind of plan than I used to when I began. I come with a very clear idea about what the scene is about. If I'm on a location and we've scouted it and I want a crane and I know where the crane's going to work and I know where they should put it, I have worked it out in my head. I get familiar enough with the script when I read it, so I understand it and I see it in my head.
Right.
But I am much, much more open to staging it, finding it, and seeing what works best.
I love that. Yeah. It's amazing to me to hear that your process has changed over the years. And I'm sure also just all the experience that you've accumulated over these years, just getting more familiar with being more nimble on your feet, just having
like very important and very important for the episodes.
Yeah.
By the way,
I'm sure
that's where you sort of started. There's a real difference. In the episodes these days, you're shooting with 3 cameras sometimes. And I sometimes say to the different camera operators, follow that person, follow their action. You can pan off them, grab this, grab that, you grab that, and then switch it up or change it. And then you go into an editing room and you've got 7 or 8 different angles, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I love thinking of directing in terms of you're getting all the raw materials that you need in order to, hand it off to an editor. Do you feel like once you get into post, you're one of those directors who are kind of looking over the shoulder of the editor the entire time, or do you like let them?
I have learned to let the editor do their thing with an understanding of what the scene is about, as opposed to cut here, cut there. I'll do that after I see it, if it needs it. But sometimes, like a cameraman or an actor, that relationship is one about inspiring them to do their best work. Absolutely. I did an episode once on Justified, and had a terrific film editor, feature guy, and I did a scene in it was like a motorhome, 5 people in the scene, and we had master and coverage and all this. And he says to me, he says, "What do you think if I start the first shot on the close-up for a minute? You don't know who's talking, you don't know where he is, and he's clearly in trouble. He's negotiating out of his own death because they're threatening him, but you don't know who's threatening him." And he's going, "Really?" And you're holding on this close-up. And I went, "Wow, that's pretty ballsy." I said, "Sure, go ahead." I looked at it. It was great. Now the episode's finished. They have a blog, and the writer of Justified writes, "Ever from the first moment when Michael Pressman held on that close-up, did we know we were good hands?" And I wrote to the editor, I said, "Thank you. However, the truth side of it is you always make these decisions, and therefore you're not going, 'Oh, no, that's not the way I planned it.' I went, 'Let me hear what you have to say. Let me watch it with your vision.' And his point of view captured what the scene was about, which is what I was intending." And I said, "Well, from an editor's standpoint, I never thought of it, but it works great."
Sorry, go ahead, Duke.
I was gonna segue a little bit.
Sure.
So maybe, unless Jacob, you want to get one.
Okay, I'll hop in really quick. I'm curious, as far as like a patient's point of view, how patient are you as a director in terms of like if someone on your set, DP, actors especially, aren't really getting it, or maybe if they haven't really done the necessary prep that they need to for their job, how do you deal with that? Is that something that you've learned to just be more patient over the years? Or
well, patience plays a big role, but I am going to throw a couple of things out here that are critical. I think the director's most important relationship is with the actors, so that you can understand the actor's process. So when an actor is not getting something, rather than going, "Oh my God, they're driving me crazy," I can go up to them and say something that can change the whole performance. And I've seen that in acting classes. When I went to study 7 or 8 years ago at Bill Esper's studio in New York, and would watch famous acting teachers be able to change a whole scene with one idea. And that's the part that I enjoy the most. I mean, I've had many moments with Mariska Hargitay, whom I adore and love to direct. And I've done 18 SVUs. And what she enjoys is I don't settle, and I push, but I push in a way that excites her, so that she'll do a scene. She did a scene once, and it was a very emotional scene, and she's being interrogated for possible child abuse of her own child, and she gets all emotional, and she's going on, and I called cut. She said, "That was great. That was great. That was it." And then she looks at me and she says, "What's the problem? What's your problem?" And I look at her and I said, you didn't come here to this office to play the scene. You didn't come here to get emotional. You were pissed off at her, and the emotion," she said, "Stop, I get it. She jumped in, did it again. She's like being more and more upset by this woman. And then she gets a call in the middle of the scene, which is what it was. She goes, "Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, I'll be there. Anything else?" And it's like all of a sudden it had all the emotion, but it had the objective,
right,
which is she had lost the objective. Now, we would talk about it a lot, and she would tell a lot of people, he had the nerve to tell me that it was, because but the one other thing, and I think it does come with experience, and it does, but there's no reason to be fearful of actors. They want direction.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I'll tell you a secret. When an actor goes, they don't want direction, like, "Leave me alone." I've heard that. Give the notes to the other actor in front of them. Then they'll start feeling, oh, you're not paying attention to me. It's like I won't talk to the actor who's being difficult, but I'll talk to the other person.
Right.
I like, though, by the way, too, because I had so many bad acting teachers in the past, and I had some really good ones. And the bad ones would tend to like talk about psychological stuff that didn't, it was just hard for them to communicate. But the thing that Jacob and I talk about so good, me being an actor, he has an acting background as a director, is when you root it in the circumstances of the script or what you're trying to get across. Because that's something that the director, the writer, everyone that is making this, telling the story cares about is the script, the actual circumstances. So that's the one language that everyone can understand. So if you brought another layer of the story to Marishika, she's probably like, oh, wait, how did I miss that? And that's fun. That's like
That's great. I didn't tell her what to do or how to do it. I told her, you didn't come here to get emotional. That's not what the scene is about. And it just flipped it. And yet at the same time, it was a very emotional scene. But she got upset that she was getting upset versus look at me get emotional. And it's so subtle difference, but it changed the whole scene.
And her jumping into with the, I've got it. That is actually like one of the best cases of ideal working relationship between director and actor, because you're both like speaking the same language. You both know exactly where each other is coming from. That working relationship between director and actor is something that I personally have had to really work on. I think as far as like growth areas as a filmmaker, a lot of the time personally, and the reason I'm saying this is because I feel like it applies to a lot of filmmakers out there, where you can be so preoccupied with shots and shot lists and sequences and how it's going to look visually. You're vibing with the crew, you're figuring things out, but 50% at least, if not more, you're saying it's the most important relationship on set, is that thing of working with an actor, being able to really be in it with them, being able to communicate with them in a way that it isn't telling them like the result, but it's actually leading them through and being like a co-partner.
Absolutely. So how much, just give me 2 minutes here. You've done what? You've directed a fee, and what's this? Give me
no, 100%. I'll give you the
for your fan club here. So we
for sure.
We can, yeah.
So I have directed 100 shorts at this point. It's exactly what you're saying though, as far as, going to the gym, like what you do with television. I feel like all the practical experience that you can get just improves your skills as a filmmaker. I've done that. I've directed an independent feature that's still in post, very, very low budget. But that's where I'm at right now. Just trying to figure things out.
Yeah. What's low budget? How low budget?
$10,000.
Awesome. That is isn't that great?
It's great. I only work in
iPhone. What'd you do?
I mean, we called in every single favor. We're here in LA, and there are DPs who are willing to just kind of donate all their equipment. So,
how long did you shoot it for?
That was 15 days.
Whoa. Yeah. Because the Roger Corman movie was 200,000 back then in 75. Yep. Right. And we shot for 25 days. Now we had a lot of action, and that's part of it. I don't know what you did in 15 days, but we do awesome.
Horror. So you can get away with, at the end of the day, the most important thing is, are you able to scare the audience? Is it like a high concept kind of thing? So we had that working for us.
Okay. Now I will say this, and if I had talked to you at 50 shorts in, I would have said, here's the thing. It is film school. It is training. It is going to the gym. In terms of the business aspect, there's a very big difference between the short and the feature. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why. The feature has a chance to make somebody money. I was trying to explain this to somebody literally today, that the difference between theater world and movie world is you can do it at 25, you can do it at 72. If I make an indie movie for 200,000 and it makes 12 million or 20 million, you better believe all those studio people who've written me off will be calling to know, will you do another?
Right.
that's not the theater. The theater is a whole other animal. You know, it's a very, very closed club and all this, and you know, but film, that's the beauty of it. I mean, you go make this 10, so you know, do it and make another feature. Stay in the feature world. Unless you're doing a sizzle reel for a pilot or something, you know, where you've got a script, you know.
May I say too, sorry, real quick, because Jacob
Yeah.
and I talk about this all the time, and it kind of applies to me as well. A big tactic for Jacob to kind of get these opportunities to make maybe not even studio feature films, but just some bigger opportunity feature films too, is by getting a built-in audience from his short films premiere on YouTube, which these days you do. He gets an audience of, on the ones that go viral. Have you gotten 1 million viewers?
I got 1.5 on a video.
1.5 million viewers.
Whoa,
So
man.
that is a strategy as well.
That is totally a strategy. Now,
Yeah.
so is there any money back from that 1.5, or is it all just viewers?
We get some AdSense back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, it's all, I mean, we both have day jobs still, and it's all a passion project until you kind of, Jacob, right, build that body of work where the powers that be want to get you going on.
Yeah, which is why I love talking with someone like you, because at least as far as, you know, thinking of strategy, because at the end of the day, yes, features, if I could just be doing features all the time, I mean, that's the absolute dream. I have learned after doing the $10,000 one, I mean, it's still stuck in post. There were certain things, I mean, you learn through an experience like that. There are certain roles on set that you really do have to pay just so you have that kind of reliability. I mean, you know, camera support and those kinds of things, audio. But yeah, I mean, what the only strategy that I can think of now, and again, I'm curious to pick your brain, in 2023 is just, you know, building an audience, and then hopefully that audience, you can then feed that into some kind of a Kickstarter, or maybe they're interested in some kind of IP that you have that you can then develop into a longer form thing. But
I think so. So you're interested in horror, right? Right
yes.
now? Is that okay? Well, that's an important one. I mean, my son, who's 24, who just graduated from Pitzer College at Claremont, you know, made a 10-minute psychological horror film, you know, and I think it's really good. I don't think he knows what to do with it yet, you know, but it seems to be the genre. You know what I mean?
It is cheaper in the grand scheme of things. You don't need like a talent attached necessarily, or
right. It's the genre that's selling it. I think you're absolutely doing what you have to do today. I think that if you were to ask me, I mean, I did one, in fact, you probably could also take a look at that. I did one in the midst of all of this, making television movies and directing pilots and running series. I went ahead and made a indie $300,000 movie that I wrote and starred in, called Frank and Johnny Are Married. And you know, we had a lot of named people in it, and we got a lot of exposure, and didn't see a dime again. That was fine, but it got some awards, and it got on, you know, it was bought for cable, but we never saw the money.
Indie movie or
Yep, totally independent.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I put my own money in it.
You've done everything. You've done everything.
I dug deep, man. I dug deep, and it was a moment when I had the most insane deal where if I left a series, I'd have a consulting fee. And I remember someone say to me, you know, not many people get this consulting fee. And I took the whole fee over a period of a year and put it into the movie. Of which
that's gutsy.
You know, my wife was okay about it because she co-starred in the film. My ex-wife. But that's another story. You'll have to kind of. This is not my psychological.
No, but it can be. But was it still the important thing with that? And it often isn't. But was it a fun experience making the movie then?
The greatest. Greatest experience. It was the most fun. Now, you know, we got favors again from labs and all that time, and they were taking the high 8 material and up-resing it, and taking the 16mm film and down-resing it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. This was, I think we're talking almost 15 years ago.
Right.
So I'm ready to do it again. And today, the difference is I have built a website.
Mhm.
I have developed, a couple of thousand people on Facebook. I'm not big on the following, but if I wanted to launch something, I would say, okay, let me try to make a film for 20 or 30 or 50,000, but then spend another 10 or 20 in the launching through the internet and through a site where
Mhm.
you could purchase it to rent or purchase it to buy as a way of slowly promoting the film to
Mhm.
see if there
Yeah.
was I think the thing that's really bizarre is we have an Instagram account for Come Get Maggie, the musical, that if you call to roguemachineludus.com and type in on the pass code Duke, you get a half price ticket. The uh the point I was going, so we have this Instagram account,
Mhm.
and we're putting pictures in every day and video. One of them went kind of Instagram viral for no
Okay.
reason we don't
Yeah.
understand. 50,000 hits, whereas the others were doing 150,
Yeah.
250,
Yeah.
50,000, and maybe it's up to 60,000 or 70,000.
I'm gonna
I don't,
look it up. Yeah.
and no one can figure out why. This whole thing is bizarre.
The weird part about it. I want to say too, for you doing a film as well in kind of the grassroots style way that you were describing. Well, it sounds like you have such a community of people and a body of work that people would trust in. But man, I mean, if you do it your own way and ensure that it's worth it in a subject that you love. My dad, Vince Van Patten, I'm not sure if you've crossed paths with him through the years.
I feel like I have.
My
I
dad.
know is what is Vince? Is he an actor or
He is an
director?
actor. He was a top 20 in the world tennis player, ironically.
Yes,
And then
yes.
he's been the host of the World Poker Tour the last 20 years as well. He was Dick Van Patten's son. But I bring him up to say that he's always been a creative entrepreneur, which it sounds like, of course, you are as well. We all are. And he just made his third movie recently, called 7 Days to Vegas, and it's inspired by a true story. He made it low budget ish. I mean, yeah, low budget indie, under a mil,
Mhm.
and raised money for it. The movie was so amazing. The good news is he made something he's so proud of. The story is a guy is in this big poker game that was true in Hollywood. It was basically the game that Molly's Game was taken from, the real one. And
Oh
then
wow.
one of the guys, in the poker game bets the other one he can't walk to Vegas in 7 days for a couple $1 million. And the movie's a road picture about that.
Wow.
And
Great, great.
Richard Roper, the biggest commentator, Chicago Sun Times and stuff,
Right.
championed the film, said it's his favorite gambling movie of all time and stuff.
Wow.
So I only bring that up to say, you never. I mean, you have so much experience doing it, but they're a master too of making grassroots movies and stuff. You guys should talk sometime. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Where's your dad live? Is he in LA? Is it?
they're L.A. people. We're L.A. Stock at this point. Yeah, they're
I
in
think
Malibu.
Tim is
Yep, New York.
neighbor in Brooklyn.
Yep. They and by the way, we just had Timmy on the podcast
Oh, cool.
3 weeks ago. I'm very blessed with my family. They're all
You
really
are.
fun people. So yeah.
But listen, you make your own destiny. So this is a great launch, but then you're what Charlie Chaplin was in a foster home and figured it all out on his own, right?
Oh my gosh. No, you got to keep hustling. It's always, I mean, that's what you do. You're just always creating.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are you up to these days in Brooklyn? Is the musical, did you get the musical
The
ready over there?
musical's finished for me in terms of directing. It's now got, I think, 3 or 4 weeks left of running at the Matrix Theater. It runs on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I started it in December rehearsing, so we rehearsed for almost 2 months. And
May I ask, by the way, you didn't write it, right?
no.
Not this time. So and what's that rehearsal process like? Because it's a new writer for.
Yes, but the writer was someone I worked with on Chicago Med when I was the show exec producing.
Yeah.
She's the head writer of the series, and she had spent 10 years working on this musical and sent it to me. And I said, hey, and by the way, that's not abnormal in the musical theater world.
Really?
Workshops and tryouts, but they'd
Yep.
never done a production. And I said, why don't we just try a production and see what it's like? And so I went to Rogue Machine because I had a history with them,
Okay.
and they put up some money, and then they put up some money, and there you have it.
And I'm not even I went to the Bristol Old Vic Theater School in England, but I haven't done any theater since I've been back in California at least. I got to look into Rogue Machine. That's in LA.
Yeah, it is a good group. Good group. They're at the Matrix Theater now in Hollywood. And the great thing about the show, in addition to being really entertaining and really fun and really great music, is the feeling I'm getting from people. And every time I tell them, they go, well, of course. They go, what an amazing cast. Everybody seems to be having so much fun. And I went, these people haven't been on stage in 3 years. This COVID thing has just shut everybody down. They came in for auditions and were going, this is my first audition in 2 years, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then, now on stage, they're having a party.
Yeah.
And no one's making any money. It's not about money. This is about the love of it. And that's the pure and simple. And you know what? Movies are about the love of it, and even television, because there's no guarantee you're going to make money. You're doing it because you love it. The difference is there's a possible payday at the other side of the experience. But
No, there's always, like you said, there's always something exciting about telling a fun story. And then when you're acting, you're doing it in front of all these people, in front of your peers and stuff. And, the sky's the limit. So I think every opportunity you got to swing for the fences, right?
yeah.
Can you touch on exec producing and what that entails?
Yeah.
And how you even got into that?
Very interesting. I never saw myself as a producer or wanted to be one. But I was doing a lot of television movies after the feature film career kind of took a halt, because a couple of movies didn't do well. And I'm getting a lot of TV movies. And then out of the blue, I got a call from a young guy named David Kelly, who had just been working on LA Law. Would I meet to discuss directing the pilot to Picket Fences?
Wait, why did he come to you? Sorry, because you had done LA Law a little bit?
No, because I had just done a pilot at Fox and I was being touted, and my name got promoted to one of the top of the list.
Cool.
Payoff is he doesn't hire me, and he hires another director to do the pilot. And I'm really kind of heartbroken. I was like, geez, I love the script. He's an up and coming young writer. Wow. Okay. Yeah. 6 months go by. They shoot the pilot. It sells. It's now a series. He calls me and goes, would you consider being a co-exec producer of the series? And I just say to him right off the bat, I go, it's nothing that I ever thought I would want to do, but the answer is, and I'm not going to pussyfoot around, the answer is yes. I said, I'll do it. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then, I was very kind of like clear, because it was, why? Because the TV movies were kind of dying and everyone was talking about TV series, and it was the heyday of network TV series. I mean, we won 16 Emmys. We had 30 nominations. I mean, the show was a tremendous critical hit, but I thought it was 13 episodes and out. I remember saying, somebody, this will never go anywhere. I'll cut my teeth on it. So I show up, and what I realized very early on, I think the job of exec producing, directing, producing is uber directing. Everybody, the editors, the other producers, the set design, the other directors, guiding everybody. And
almost like show running in a sense.
Yes. Yes. You're aware of budget. You're aware of coming up with suggestions to trim things in the script. You can if you have a creative dialogue with the show creator, you can come up with story ideas to suggest. But it's making it a very, very positive, creative environment. So I would hire directors that I felt had a simpatico with the material, where I got along with them, the cast got along. The cast knew that I was very actor oriented. So, you know. And I also ran a very, very friendly, happily dysfunctional show. If we worked it out so Tom Skerritt could leave at 4 p.m. on Friday so we can go back to Seattle. Kathy Baker had some trouble with hip surgery before the show. She was fine, but we got our driver. And so once she got the driver, she said, "Can I keep the driver?" I said, "Okay, you can keep the driver." Lauren Holly, who was the young actress in the show, who, went on, she was never on time. She was always 20 minutes late. So at one point I said, make her call 20 minutes early. So she caught on and she's 40 minutes late. So I went to her and I said, "Listen, I'm going to make a deal with you." She said, "You never have to wait for me. I'm always ready on set. They just had me too early." And I said, "You can be 20 minutes late. But if I ever hear that they're waiting for you because you were 20 minutes late, that's a problem. So if that's what you need, you got it." And it was like, so she would never be late because she loved the challenge of proving that she was right. So you're running a nursery school.
I love all this reverse psychology
I know.
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
also, isn't that life too? It's like being a good business person. You have to figure out how to get the result you need, and you just have to be creative and not be like, what's fair, what's not, because none of it's fair. You got to figure out.
But how about this one? It just came to me. Are you ready for this insanity? Because we laughed about it the other day.
Please.
I did a short-lived series called The Brotherhood of Poland, New Hampshire. It was a big failure, but David Kelly had written it, and we were on for like 4 episodes. The cast was Randy Quaid, John Carroll Lynch, Chris Penn, Elizabeth McGovern, Mayor Winningham, and Annie Cusack. So 6 people, 6 stars, 3 families, 3 brothers.
Comedy, no?
Comedy, drama, that kind of
yeah.
We shot the pilot in New Hampshire and then the series in LA. But we would have, this was pre-Blue Bloods, there would be a dinner scene every episode with the 3 brothers and the thing, 6 around the table. To get them to the set was a challenge. But when I said the first person who sits down at the chair and the table, at the end of the day, who does it the most gets a very special DVD. Because at the time, everyone wanted DVDs. So we would buy a whole slew of DVDs. And I'm telling you, these actors would wait like as far, we'd push everybody away like in their own chairs about 6 feet from the table. And when the AD said ready, they'd run laughing hysterical. Who's going to sit first to get the DVD?
Yeah.
That's genius.
And it worked. And it was a little chaotic, but it was like nuts.
A situation that I love that story, by the way, a situation that I've never been a part of, because I obviously haven't been on these big of sets, but when, you mentioned don't be scared of actors, but there's a certain situation where because a name talent is on your set, that's what's funding the entire thing. And then if they happen to throw a temper tantrum or they won't leave their trailer, like, how do you even deal with that?
Watch Frankie and Johnny Are Married. In Frankie and Johnny Are Married, the movie begins on the set of Chicago Hope, and Mandy Patinkin is having a meltdown. Now, when I came up with this idea, I wrote this scene and I sent it to Mandy. And David Kelly said, "Oh, you can't do that. That Mandy Patinkin will never do this. I said, I bet he does. So Mandy calls me and says, "Oh, I love that scene. I can't wait to do it." He said, "I'm traveling. I'll do it." So he has a complete meltdown. He will not come out of his trailer in the story. Okay. And I have to go in and talk him through it. So watch the scene. And by the way, he improvised stuff. And I was on my game, but you have to see it.
You gotta check it.
Yeah,
Frank
it's right in the
Johnny
opening.
Are Married. Yeah.
Yeah, Frank. And it was like, no one. Listen, I had David Caruso for 10 episodes, and we got along great. I did Michael Hayes the last 9 episodes, and I just, I had a sense of humor with him. I came on the show in the middle and there's a lot of problems. And I don't know, I don't know, I was doing something in the scene and I don't know what it was. And I made some kind of joke and then he made a joke and he goes, I haven't made a joke this whole season. Why am I having a good time here? And I went, I don't know. What's your problem? I don't know. It's like, okay, what's going on here? It was like,
But at least someone was like poking fun at it.
yeah, Patrick Dempsey on Grey's Anatomy, who I ended up also having a great relationship with, and he was so unhappy on the show. And I show up season 5, and they keep telling me he has to be out at 10 a.m. because he's catching a plane. And he's going east because he always wants to leave. I said, we got a short little scene. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. But he's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. So I finish at 5 of 10. I'm looking at the clock. And he goes, great, thanks, bye. And he runs off the set. And I went, wait a minute, hold it. And he goes, what? I said, there's a hair in the gate. And he comes back and says, what? I said, I'm just joking. Just joking. And he goes, oh, like this, like, oh, okay, we're playing here. I went, yeah, come on. Have a good day. That's how I do it.
It's one big play of give and take.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, what energy are you bringing to set? And I've found like that's key. Like as a director on a set, you are setting the culture and you're setting the feel of everything.
Absolutely. 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 Anyway, guys, this has been fun.
Man,
Michael,
I can't thank you enough for talking to us. Seriously.
Right, you two are inspiration for me, my friends. It's like $10,000 movie. I love it. You guys working on your own films and
yeah, we're gunslinging. Yeah, irons in the fire, baby. Yeah,
that's what it is. It's the wild, wild west.
exactly. Hey, buddy, let's talk soon. This is so exciting. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Good luck with your musical.
All right. Thank you. And I'll say hi to Leland for you guys.
You got it.
Thank him. What a great treat. Okay.
Oh, truly will. And I'm going to let you know what we think of the musical and everything. We'll talk to you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Michael.